Hello, you're on Snail TV. Today's video is about the 2015 melodrama Lady Chatterley's Lover, based on the scandalous novel by British author David Herbert Lawrence. Cars with guests pull up to the posh Chatterley mansion. The owner of Rugby Manor, Baron Clifford, meets the charming Constance, who is attending his party for the first time. Sometime later, just before the hero is sent off to war, they get married. The lovers have only one fabulous night of mad passion before parting. In one of the battles, Clifford's platoon, which because of its baronial title wears the epaulets of an officer, receives orders to go on the attack. The hero gives the signal to attack, rises to his full height, and at the same time, a shell explodes near him. The wounded officer falls to the bottom of the trench. An unfamiliar private sees this and calls the paramedics. A military medical truck brings Clifford home. Constance, along with the servants, meets the man they love on the doorstep. A moment later, the joy of meeting is replaced by shock, as a wheelchair is rolled up to the car and her husband is seated in it. The heroine, with tears in her eyes, discusses with her husband, who is paralyzed from the waist down, the doctor who could put Clifford on his feet. She tries to control herself, but when she crosses the threshold, she weeps bitterly. Suddenly, Constance hears the sound of a pistol cocking and hurriedly returns to her husband's study. The man has a revolver to his temple because he doesn't want to live in a wheelchair and cause her constant problems. The heroine rushes to her husband and grabs the gun, which makes the bullet fly by. The girl comforts the crying man lying on the floor and tells him that she will always be there for him, not out of pity, but out of love for him. Meanwhile, the war comes to an end. A soldier, Oliver Mellors, hiding in a trench from artillery fire, writes a letter to his girlfriend, Gerta. A few days later, he demobilizes, approaches his beloved house, and then sees that his beloved is pregnant and living with another man. The now single Oliver is interviewed for a gamekeeper position at Rugby Manor. It turns out that he fought in the same regiment in which Clifford himself served as an officer, so that Baron hires the man without much hesitation. The owner of the estate acquires himself a mini-car, after which he gets the opportunity to accompany his wife on horseback rides through the woods. During one of them, Constance gets acquainted with the new huntsman Oliver, who has settled down in a small shack far away from everybody. One morning, the handrail that helps Clifford down from the high bed breaks one morning. As a result, the heroine who came to her husband's aid in time strains her back muscles. Because of her injury, she is unable to watch her disabled husband, but the young and beautiful maid, Ivy Bolton, does. At breakfast, Constance makes a scene of jealousy as Ivy, instead of her, helps the paralyzed Clifford, even with his natural needs. The man explains that he is not ashamed to ask the maid for such help, but is embarrassed to ask his lawful spouse. The master of the manor leaves to supervise the work at his coal mine. Meanwhile, the heroine decides to personally hand over the key to the new Jaeger, and at the same time, to take a walk to get rid of bad thoughts. The normal dialogue between Oliver and Constance, because of the man's bad mood and Lady Chatterley's pride, doesn't work. In anger, she throws the key on the table and then leaves his dwelling. But we know that opposites attract, don't we? Sir Clifford decides to test the new equipment himself, and then with reckless courage climbs the high stairs with just his hands. A little later, the heroine receives a note in which Oliver apologizes for the unfortunate conversation. The girl returns to the distant woodman's hut, then says that it is a beautiful place, so she plans to come here often to paint landscapes. Suddenly, it begins to rain, causing a soaked Constance and Oliver to hide in his cabin. The man refuses to sit by the fire next to the mistress of the Rugby estate, as he is afraid that people will find out about it. Bad rumors will circulate, and as a result, he will lose his job. At night, Constance begins to molest her paralyzed husband, who thanks her for her passion, but says with regret that her efforts are useless. He feels nothing below the waist. Then the excitable girl asks Clifford to please her in some other way. but her husband refuses, alleging fatigue. The next day, the Baron undergoes a painful foot treatment with strong electric shocks, for he still dreams of an heir, but it has no positive effect. Disappointed by the lack of results, the man who has endured a day of torture weeps with helplessness. Constance strolls through the woods, coming again to the woodsman's hut, where he is building a fence for the chickens. She takes the bird in her hands and Oliver notices that the bird has taken her for her mother, after which the heroine weeps bitterly. She too dreams of having children, but her disabled husband, to his great regret, is unable to produce an heir. The huntsman takes Constance by the hand and presses it to his chest, after which the heroine responds to this fatherly caress with unexpected passion, because it is so hard for her without a real, full-fledged man. Oliver inhales the fragrance of the beautiful girl's hair. They openly look into each other's eyes. Then, holding hands, they head for the cabin in the woods. Casting aside the fear of severe punishment and dishonorable dismissal, the lovers indulge in sinful passion. After a while, Oliver takes Constance to the edge of the forest, tells her that the girl has given him back his taste for life, after which the secret lovers say goodbye. The next day, the maid Ivy approaches the heroine painting a picture while hiding from the rain in gazebo. Constance asks her how her husband died, and she answers, 6 years ago, due to an explosion in a mine owned by the Chatterleys. It turns out that the maid still loves her late husband and misses his touch madly. At night, a thunderstorm begins. The insatiable Constance, unable to resist her wild desire, runs to Oliver's hut. The girl does not notice that Ivy, the maid, is watching her from the window. The lovers meet and passionately kiss, after which the hero kneels down on the threshold of his house and satisfies Lady Chatterley in the light of lightning, burrowing his face into her bosom. At breakfast, Constance again talks to her husband about the children. Clifford says that he has made every effort, but no doctor has been able to help him with the problem. Nevertheless, reasoned the naive husband, their marriage has moved on to a higher plane, spiritual intimacy, and sex is a physical need that can be endured. If the master of the manor knew the way his beloved, in quotes, abstains, in double quotes. The heroine's sister, Hilda, arrives at Rugby Manor. From Constance's shining eyes and contented smile, she immediately guesses that she has a lover. The heroine asks for an oath, then reveals the identity of the one who replaced her paralyzed husband in bed. But then, seeing her sister's negative reaction, she turns everything into a joke. To spice up the boring life of the manor, Baron Chatterley throws a party with many guests, the first time since he returned home in a wheelchair. Clifford brags to everyone about another modernization of his coal mine, but when he sees Duncan, his wife's former lover, among the guests, he leaves the ballroom. In the morning before breakfast, the Baron once again speaks of a child. Constance flares up, for it turns out that her husband has invited Duncan to the ball to make them an heir. Once again, the heroine indulges in adultery with the gamekeeper in his cabin in the woods. Their intimacy has been taken to a new level, and now they even say vulgar things to each other, completely unashamed. Oliver hears his dog barking, opens the door, and looks around, after which he hints to his young mistress that everything secret, sooner or later, comes out. A few days later, the lovers meet at the town fair. Constance, to disguise herself, dressed in simple country clothes, so she doesn't hesitate to kiss the woodsman in public, and then they're completely secluded in a back alley. After a while, Constance looks in the mirror at her visibly rounded belly and then realizes that it hasn't grown at all because of overeating. Frequent, unrestrained sex with the young huntsman Oliver has led to a natural outcome. The contented heroine comes to the library and announces to her husband the good news that she is expecting a child, but she does not admit who it is from. Clifford, to the surprise of real man, reacts positively to the news because he himself, because of a battle injury, cannot reproduce offspring, alas. The head of the estate says he wants to check on the growing pheasants, takes his wife with him, gets into a mini car, and then they head for the gamekeeper's house. Oliver emerges from the woods as Constance falls slightly behind her husband and kisses her mistress. Clifford pretends that his vehicle is stuck, calls for the hero's help, then tells Oliver about his wife's pregnancy, and also hints that the woodsman pushed more than just his car. Constance visits her sickly lover. The hero is angry, as he thinks she only needed him to conceive a child, for he is a mere poor servant. The heroine replies she loves him for real. A quarrel breaks out, which further exposes the social inequality between the characters, because Oliver has worked in the Baron's coal mine since he was 12 years old, and she has chosen the rich Clifford as her husband, to live a carefree life and never want for anything. Constance becomes depressed. Her husband rides in on her in a wheelchair, and the first thing he asks is whether the child, his future heir, is all right. Clifford persuades his wife to arrange a soiree to formally announce the pregnancy to prevent unnecessary rumors from spreading. The maid Ivy goes to the woodman's hut, finds a book with the heroine's initials, then sends a note to Clifford asking for an urgent meeting. The maid tells the owner of the manor that she knows who the real father of the child is, after which she expresses all the accumulated pain and resentment for the fact that her husband died in the Chatterley mine, and she was not fully compensated. Not only that, the maid's monologue reveals that the Baron and Ivy used to be lovers. Constance finds her husband on the lawn of the house. Clifford says he now knows exactly who the father of the child is. Then he drives his wife away in a fit of rage. The heroine finally realizes that she truly loves Oliver, rushes to the gamekeeper's cabin, hugs him tightly, then offers to run away from the Rugby estate with him. The hero refuses, as he, a simple poor man, cannot provide her with a luxurious and carefree life. The woman says he is the only one she cares about. Constance arrives at the Chatterley mine to talk to her husband. Clifford is filled with cold rage, for the woman has not only broken the bonds of marriage, but has also disgraced him by failing to conceal the secret that the Baron cannot have children. The heroine says she has come to ask for a divorce. She wants to officially marry Oliver. The former gamekeeper enters the office, after which there is a quarrel between the men, which again concerns the social difference between the rich and the poor. Oliver reveals the secret. He was the one who saved the wounded Clifford on the battlefield, and the Baron doesn't even remember his face. Constance begs her husband for a divorce, and suddenly he agrees. The heroes leave the Rugby estate, and a new happy life full of love and harmony awaits them. That's all, dear friends. If you liked the video and want more quality retellings, subscribe, don't forget to like it and write a comment. See you soon on Snail TV.